Hi, everyone. I'd love to welcome April Sabral today to our conversation with a different look today about the store experience, but specifically the people behind the store experience. So, April, welcome, and please share a little bit about yourself with our audience.
Amazing. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Um, I have been working in retail sales and operations for 3 decades, and actually grew up in a retail store. My mum was an antique dealer in the UK, and so I grew up around things coming and going, you know, stories, customer experiences, and all of that good stuff. And then went into retail at a very young age and kind of worked my way up. So I've worked in all different brands, from Apple to Starbucks. I was part of that opening crew in the UK, and then moved to the US. And then to Canada. So I've worked in 3 international markets. I've run stores anywhere from technology to high-end fashion to fast fashion to tea. And the last role I had, I was leading 300 stores in Canada, which was a very beloved tea brand in Canada. So, I've done it all. I've been a salesperson all the way up to a senior vice president, and my true passion and expertise is really creating those amazing customer experiences in the store with the teams, because at the end of the day, I know everybody talks about bricks and mortars going away, but in the decades I've been in it, it's not going anywhere. That store experience is so key to the retailer being successful. And so, yeah, I just love it. And then through the pandemic, I started a training company. So now I get to train and develop those leaders in not just one retailer, but in more of them.
Amazing. So, you are training retailers specifically on the store experience.
Yeah. So
Um,
what we focus in on is leadership, because in all the years of training and running stores, I can tell you that if you can buy a software, adopt a software, have a strategy, buy an amazing product line, but if the leader of that store doesn't know how to help the store team actually execute the vision of what the whole organization is trying to achieve on the front line, it doesn't matter, right? So I've seen it from so many stores just going in and having that leader well trained and knowing how to coach and develop their team on the front line makes the difference, sometimes on a 20% comp year on year. So that's where we focus in on, and predominantly with store management, middle management, and up.
Amazing. We've had the same conversation with a few other people where it seems like exactly what you're saying. You can bring in this great piece of technology, you can have this really amazing store activation, but if you haven't brought in your sales team and the people in the store to participate in that, then you kind of are on a rocky road to success because they're so integral to the success of the program, but they often are not included in it.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, you must see that, right, with Paula, like adoption rates and things like that. It really, if you can get that leader engaged and buy into it and know how to communicate and know how to inspire somebody to use the tools, then you've got a winning formula. I've been in too many organizations where I've seen tools just not adopted well because of that. And it wasn't the tool, it was literally the execution of it, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, super important.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding the champion, both for the kind of head office team, for the success, as well as for the vendor, for sure. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about then how you think about. We know stores are not going away. At Parla, we believe the same thing, that the salesperson is really integral to the shopping experience and to the customer journey. And we talk to a lot of retailers and brands about their omni-channel strategy, which we know is something that's been, it's been something that we've all heard about for a very long time. So when you think about the stores, how do you think about the omni customer journey in terms of where and how the store and the salespeople play a role in that omni strategy?
I mean, I think the front and forward and center. I think that the Omni journey is about the total journey. I remember, like, right when, like, ecom first came out and all the investment was just in ecom and figuring out the platforms and figuring out how to get product online. And the people that didn't do it well were the ones that built that in silo in a segmentation. When you see other brands that did it really well and early, and I'm going to say Lululemon's probably one of them, that created a total experience, right? From like, you could order something, go pick it up in your local store. You could be in the local store, buy it in another store, ship it to a store. Like you could literally kind of have the, I don't want to say Amazon experience, but like buy from anywhere, ship from anywhere, and any touch point. And so I think when you think about Omni, you have to think about it as a total journey of touch points for those customers, because they have access to a brand everywhere now. There is like what, 10 social platforms now, right? So you have access everywhere. So how do brands make that journey succinct and create the experience that they want throughout every touch point so that you reduce friction? Because the attention to buy now is, if you have friction somewhere, you're just going to go and Google it and find it somewhere else. So I think that's really, really important to remember. However, the role of the salesperson in all of this is what's so important, is that when you have a really good experience with a person, you are connected to somebody, right? And so that connection, I believe, can supersede everything as long as they're given the tools and they're not frustrated. Because a lot of times what you see in stores is a salesperson frustrated or a manager frustrated because they don't know what's going on in the other channels. They're not informed on it. They're not communicated. They don't know how to use those tools. So, yeah, it's the whole journey now, right? You cannot have friction anywhere. It can't be like, oh no, it's not. You go into a store. I've seen this. You go into a store, you go to buy something, and they go, oh well, you just go home and like buy it on the website. And you're like, no, don't let them leave the store. Like, build that relationship, right? Just open up a browser. Well, we can't do that because it's locked in security. We don't know how to do that. So it's like there's so much technology and tools now. We have to enable people to be able to do that.
Where do you see retailers investing in technology and tools when you're talking to them? Because I think from our perspective, we still see that e-com and stores, just to kind of, I know there are so many touch points, but if you just look at those two channels, we still see that they're quite separated, and that you could have. I was speaking to an e-com head of a fashion company, and they really failed with their omni strategy because the stores and e-com were kind of pitted against each other. So the store staff would never fulfill online orders. They would actually cancel orders so that they could sell the merchandise to their walk-in customers. So that's a whole other
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
But we're
That is.
but where do you see, when brands are thinking about bringing in systems or tools or software, where do you see them actually invest? Do you see that it's kind of a consistent investment across all the companies that you work with, or do you feel like it's different depending on the organization?
Yeah, I don't think it's the same. I think it's different for the organization and the maturity of where they are in the technology journey, right? Because everybody's got different priorities. But if you go back to the first point you made, the whole thing about like a store staff not wanting to sell it to fulfill an online order, that is a bit of technology, but it's also more to do with rewards and recognition and those bonuses and things that are put in place. Because if a store has labor hours and a sales goal to meet, they don't want to spend their labor hours processing when it's not recognized as a sale in the store. So I think that's a whole other conversation and needs to be dealt with, because if that doesn't get dealt with, it's not going to change, because the pressure is real in stores to deliver the results and the sales that they've been given and reduce the labor cost, right? So that's a whole other conversation. But when it comes to like investing in technology, I think AI, I know it's a huge buzzword right now, but we just came off a Microsoft event talking about AI. And there is a real drive and investment for AI to simplify processes in the business, whether that be your buying processes, which are very antiquated, and a lot of planners are still working on Excel spreadsheets, which should not be the case in 2024. And also just, training and development. Where we work is they're investing in a lot of AI softwares to create and produce content, especially in the marketing teams too. So when I was at the NRF or even at the lead this year, what I did see was a lot of AI tools and resources that can take the cumbersome tasks off the employees doing the job and then allow them to have more creativity with that. But in that respect, we need to see AI as an ally and not see it as replacing our jobs. And I think that's the biggest hurdle, because the number one concern out there is AI going to replace my job? And it's not, if it's brought in and adopted in the right way, to help them reduce the processing times. Like even me, like if I'm going to write an email campaign or I'm going to create some content now, I'm literally using it as my assistant, right, to help me be more creative, and it saves me time. Like I heard a senior vice president the other day say he was in traffic, he was driving to the office, and he had 4 emails to send. And he literally sat there in the car, talked to ChatGPT, told him, hey, can you write these emails for me? When he got there, bam, it was done. It saved him like an hour and a half in the morning, which meant then he could focus on some other issues that he had to solve. So, yeah, I think AI, wherever that fits into your business, is where people are investing in.
How much of the store team's time do you think is filled up by just regular processes like fulfilling orders versus actually having time to be creative, like you were saying, like bring creativity in, actually serving customers, kind of the magic of retail when you have that wonderful experience when you walk into a store?
Yeah, I think that a lot of their time, unfortunately, is doing operational tasks, like you said, fulfilling orders, or whether that be, just things that have to get done, scheduling, cleaning, all the operational tasks that go in. There's a lot of operational tasks that go into running stores, merchandising. Like you can't get AI to you might be able to get it to create a wall, like a visual plan, but you can't get it to put the product out, right? So there's all these physical tasks that need to get done. So it's interesting. I've seen other businesses now, like IKEA just reframed all of their customer service agents and trained them on how to use AI to create interiors for their customers. So instead of them taking all the customer issues now, they're actually re-educating them to be interior designers, which is kind of cool, because now it's giving them that creativity that can enable them to be productive and help their customers, right? Which is really cool. So I think there's ways to do that, but that's a call center. It's not in
That's
a
super
store.
cool.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah.
So I think you got to think about that. Like, how can we take things off the store teams? One thing I did hear as well from the head of Reese, which Reese is a UK brand. She was at a conference with us recently, and she said she's taking AI and using it to push all the tasks that got put on to the store teams in the last 4 years because of the lack of headcount in the office, let's say. And she's taking all of those tasks back to her head office support partners so that it can now give the store staff the time to be on the floor with their customers engaged, because there's a lot of things that they took on that they actually don't need to have anymore, because AI can support head office be more productive. So I thought that was really cool as well. That was where her focus, she's like, I have hope that the store experience is going to come back if we can get all these tasks off them and give it back to where it belongs.
Yeah, I love those two examples of IKEA and Reese using AI. How do retailers with you then think about the low foot traffic hours in the stores?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's always been the question that needs to be answered. And I think it comes back to that's the time when they have the moment to educate themselves on the product, do fit sessions, call their clients, build that relationship. Um, have fun with their store team. I mean, I remember back in the day, we used to create these little index cards that had activities on them, and it would say role play, this kind of customer's coming in or this client, and, let's have a role play about it and then talk about what that looks like to build that skill in their salespeople. Because let's face it, in retail, there is a lot of first time employees that are part time employees, and they need the training, right? So that's really important. But if you're a manager, and maybe you're a brand new manager, or maybe you've been a manager for 25 years, But you have this idle time now, and you don't know how to train somebody and coach somebody and have those activities kind of given to you. You won't know what to do with that idle time. You'll then gossip, you'll go online, you'll watch, go on Facebook, Instagram, just waste your time, which is like all of us, right? Because we get addicted to social. So I think the focus on training that leader to be a trainer and develop their team is essential and cannot be kind of like pushed under the rug or not prioritized. The other day, I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting in the design district, right, in Miami. I'm their retail expert. And somebody said, who was a small business owner, just can't find any good employees. Like the employee market is terrible. And I said, well, nobody walks in off the street amazing as a salesperson. Like sometimes, but that's very rare. I said, you have to train them to be a salesperson. She was like, well, I don't want to do that. I just own the store. And I was like, well, you shouldn't really own a store if you don't want to train salespeople. Like that doesn't make sense in my book, right? I was a salesperson at 17. Somebody trained me along the way in every role. I was fortunate. So that is where people should be spending their time, getting education.
Do you feel like from when you've been in the industry since you were 17, you said 3 decades, do you feel like the kind of human capital constraints or areas of focus in terms of training and development have changed since you started, or are they kind of the same? Like the struggle to find people or the struggle to train staff is the same, or do you feel like they've evolved? Is
Yeah,
it the same fight, or is it a different fight?
I think it's the same fight but chopped up differently because, and I say that because when I started, the investment was heavily in training and development because there wasn't e-com. The money wasn't going into social media marketing and into e-com and building those platforms, and the technology wasn't there. The investment in technology wasn't there. It was starting. And so I remember very clearly working at Starbucks as a manager and Gap as a manager back in the day of having like this amazing management leadership program. And I know people that I know talk about the Macy's executive program, like they talk about that all the time and how great that was. And a lot of us that went through that ended up becoming senior vice presidents and C-suite from being on the shop floor because of that investment. So I think the resources were allocated different. The struggle is still the same. Like you still need to train and develop people. You still need to invest in them. And you can't negate that. So I think, you know, yeah, it's just chopped up differently. It's where the money goes. And also now it's really where the mindset of the executive team is. Like, do they buy into training and development? I mean, I've talked to retail leaders that like get it and know that it's a long-term investment and that it's not going to maybe pay today because it's like building a clientele list. You can't get on the shop floor and build a whole clientele list in a day. It's going to take you some time, right, to build that relationship. And training is the same way. It's ongoing every day. Leadership is not built in a day, it's built daily, right? So knowing that you have to do something about it daily. And so it's really a mindset of whether that senior team believes in it or not. That's what I see when I'm working with people. I can't convince people that you need to do leadership training and sales training. You have to really buy into that and get educated on what the results are going to be, but know that it's a long-term strategy.
Yeah. So then, what's your advice to everyone now who's getting ready for holiday season? And we know that there's a lot of temp workers that come in for these 2 months in the lead up.
Yeah, have a plan to communicate what's your priorities are. Keep it simple, keep it stupid, right? Like that sounds like very simple, but people are coming in on a shop floor. You need them to engage with your customers really well. You need to have them talk about the product that you're trying to push, and you need to try and build that loyalty of them coming back after, because this is your opportunity now when you get more traffic in the stores. So, keep it simple. I remember when I was working at David's Tea, and the software called Nudge had just come out, and it was a communication platform on rewards. And the reason why people loved it so much, because it was like an Instagram feed, and we all live on Instagram, right? So it was literally, here's information for the day. I could post a video, keep it simple, and then people could communicate. And I remember going into the stores and them saying, oh, this is so good because I don't have to go looking for like 10 PDF documents and 50 emails and all of that stuff. So, we get buried with email, right? Like it's the way that we
Yeah.
communicate. But I think if you just kind of find ways to communicate and keep it simple, stupid, the less is more. That's a Gap phrase from back in the day. I think Mickey Drexler just posted that on LinkedIn the other day. It was like less is more,
Okay.
and we were all like, that's still in my head from 30 years ago. Why? Because it was so simple, right? You got to keep communication simple. So I think that in itself, and invest in people and train and have fun. This is the time of year where people get to have a really great experience, and a lot of employees stay on after if they have a great experience.
Wonderful. And our last question for everyone is, what's the best customer experience you've had?
It's recently, actually, because I was going to deliver a workshop to 200 leaders. And it's funny because I don't think about this organization as giving really good experiences, but we had to print like 220 books, right? And we're always last minute because I'm always changing things. I drive my team crazy, but I always want it to be the best it can be, right? So we're working right till a late deadline. And Staples in Miami, actually, we ordered everything online, and the next day he calls me and he's like, we don't have any of the resources to be able to print these 200 books for you. And I was like, what? Like, we have to pick them up tomorrow. We're going to be there in 2 days. So anyway, he was amazing. The whole team was amazing. And for inconveniencing me and everything, he was like, okay, don't worry, we'll print everything for you, we'll help you find another place to do it, and literally helped us get everything together. And so I've had that experience actually specifically with the print teams at Staples, because we print so many books now. They're actually really well trained. It's kind of surprising, but they went above and beyond. And so if I was going to choose to take my business in my training company to do print, that's where I go, because they always treat us exceptionally well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, problem solvers.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And like knew my name, came in the next day, had everything set up, and, gave us a discount, gave us coupon, everything to try and keep our business. So I really
Yeah.
appreciated that. They went above and beyond.
Yeah, amazing. Well, April, this has been wonderful. Tell us where we can find you, because you have a lot of places where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, April Sabral, but also just aprilsabral.com. You'll find everything, all the resources, and we've got tons of free resources for retail leaders. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.